everyone, Serena here from Spin and Dye in Texas, and tonight we are going to be doing soap felting as part of our quarantine fiber group. I'm so happy to have you guys here. I'm so excited to do this. It's a really easy craft to do. The soaps are great to have kind of set aside if you need them for a gift or last minute prize for the party or something like that. So we'll go over, I'll show you all the steps that you need to do in order to felt on soap. And we'll talk about all of that in just a minute and what you need. But before that, I just had to share because I've been very productive this week or this past weekend. I finished the yarn last week. I showed you guys the rainbow yarn, which I was so happy to have done. So I had a little bit left on the bobbin of the rainbow single, and I just chain plied or Navajo plied it to be a 3-ply yarn. So I have about 50 yards. So I finished that, which I was super excited about. Then I was doing some work with my class, and I wanted to do something on the Ashford loom or Ashford wheel. And so I made this really pretty yarn. It is Angora fiber, faux Angora, I'm sorry. The white is faux Angora, and then the kind of bluish purple single is a mix of merino and nylon. So I was just happy with it because honestly, I am never really good at spinning on the Ashford, and it came out even, and it came out perfectly balanced, which I was so excited about. I was so excited. So, and then I had a little bit left of the blue and purple, so I made a nice fun little mini skein again. And then the last thing I did, I just finished this one today, and it's this really funky, so not in my color family, green and blue yarn. And I don't know if I like it, I'll be honest. It's not my favorite thing I've ever spun, but I got it done. So I feel like I've been very productive this week. So that's what I worked on. But today we're going to do the soap felting, or I keep calling it soap felting. I should be referring to it as felting with soap, or felting on soap, but I'll keep calling it soap felting. You guys have been here for 6 weeks. You know how this works with me. I just keep calling things the wrong thing, and I'm kind of okay with it. So these are examples of soaps that I've done. Let me throw it at you. There you go. 3D. There you go. All right. So these are some examples of soaps that I've done. It's a bar of soap on the inside and wool roving on the outside that's been felted onto it. And the nice thing about these soaps is that it's basically like having a washcloth and the soap together. And then once the soap is done, you throw out the fiber that becomes kind of a felted little ball, and you just throw that out, and that's biodegradable. So that's kind of the thought process behind doing this over using, say, a loofah, which is plastic and doesn't break down the right way, or anything like that. I can't think of another word for it. So there's another one that I did. Now, generally, you're going to use just bits of roving that you have left over. You don't have to buy special roving for this or anything like that. One thing to keep in mind is you do want to make sure that it is 100% wool because you need it to felt. So nylon is not going to felt. Anything acrylic is not going to felt, and you're going to have a very frustrating time with it. So stick with wool. But other than that, you can use bits and bobs. And what I'm going to be using tonight is the leftover from my rainbow yarn. So these are the leftover bits that I didn't get to. There's not really enough here to make a nice size skein, so I am just going to use this for felting. I also have a bag where I'll just throw bits in, and when the bag gets filled, I'll do soaps, I'll do dryer balls, that kind of thing. So you need roving. It does not take a lot. That's the other thing too. So there's a lot here. I will not go through all of this tonight. I just wanted to have all the colors to choose from because I don't know what design I'm going to do yet. So you need roving, you need bar soap. Mine is Olay bar soap. I think it was 6 bars for $3.85. You can use homemade soaps for this as well, or pretty much anything else as long as it's in bar form. So I'll open this one up so you can see what we're working with here. Ooh, these ones are kind of purpley. But it's just a regular, normal bar of soap that's sweating for some reason. Oh, I think that's the essential oils that are in it. So it's a very, very strong smell, this particular brand. But I'm going to do 3 at a time, which I forgot to grab my other one here. Grabbing it, trying not to knock things over. Okay, so I'm going to do 3 bars at a time just because I find that doing one kind of isn't worth it. And if you do 6 or 7 at a time, it's just more time consuming. So 3 we should be able to get through on our meeting tonight. Then the last thing that you're going to have to go out and get is some pantyhose or knee highs. Now I got these little plastic balls that have a pair of knee highs in them for $1 a piece. The nice thing is these ones I haven't used yet. That's why they're still in the container. But unless they tear when you are felting, you can keep using them. So I saved the ones that I used before, and that's what I'm actually going to be using tonight instead of the new ones. The last thing you want to grab is a pan to put your soap on. This one's kind of messy on the bottom, but the top is clean. So a pan to put your soaps on, and then I like to set a cloth or some paper towels on top of the pan, just because that way they don't slide around so much. And if you're using something that's been hand dyed or just has some leaking color just a little bit, it'll just get absorbed by the towel. So I have that on a towel on the pan. I'm going to set that over here, and we'll start by pulling the soap out of the boxes. And actually, because this is covered in oil, I'm going to set it right there. I think it's oil of Olay anyway, right? So it makes sense. Now, like I said, when I decided I wanted to do this, I bought soaps that just fit my budget. You can go as fancy as you want with these soaps as long as it is in bar form. They're all kind of like that. That's weird. Okay, so I have my soap laid out. Now I need my roving. Now I'm going to, and a bucket of water. That's the other thing you need. I forgot because it wasn't on my tray because it wouldn't fit. So this is my bucket of water. I'll move it up here when we get to that point. I got these really cool collapsible tubs that I think it was called a collapsible sink at my local grocery store, and I absolutely love them. It has a drain in the bottom, which is obviously plugged right now because there's water in there. And they're portable, and then I can collapse them down and just store them with my other craft stuff. So that's what I'll be using. I've used small, like Rubbermaid containers and that kind of thing as well. And those work just fine. You don't need a lot of space to work in to do this. So whatever you have available should work for you. So I'm going to pull out some roving here. And let's see. I think I'll do one with the purples. I'll do one with blues. And I'll do one that's kind of fiery. We'll do orange, yellow, and red. All right. So I'm going to set this aside. I'll just toss it over there. It's fine. Now, what you need to do is you are going to be wrapping the roving around your soap. You want it to be tight. You do not want the roving to be too thick. So when I pull this little roll out here that I have, we can see it's still pretty thick. If I were to take this and just kind of stick it on here, the problem is that it's so thick that then when you want to use it as soap, you have to really like roll it around in your hands before it'll start sudsing up. So if you go a little bit on the thinner side, you're going to get better suds. Now, when we say thin, we don't mean so thin that you can kind of like see through it like you can there. You can see kind of the light coming through. I'm going to make it a little bit thicker. Now I'm using multiple pieces, so I'll be able to lay them over top of each other to cover any holes. So I'm just pulling this out, kind of like if I wanted to make a spider web out of it for Halloween or something. Just pulling it out really thin, not long like if you were pre-drafting for spinning, just kind of flat and thin. So you can see what I've created there. And for now, I'm just going to lay it on top because I'm going to do these two other pieces. So unroll it, which you won't always have to do. I just have this weird thing where I roll my roving when I divide it up for spins. So mine is all in these little rolls, which is probably not smart because I'll eventually accidentally felt something. But for now, that's what I keep doing. So I'm going to take, so the light purple will cover the top and wrap a little bit around the bottom with the amount that I had. Now, the pieces that you're working with are going to be different size. So the best thing to keep in mind is you want to cover the entire piece of soap. You want to cover it to a point where, actually, that's going to be a little more. You want to cover it to a point where you can't really see the soap, but not so much that you can't feel the soap. You don't want it to feel like a big piece of roving in your hand. You want it to feel like there's something hard in there. I hope I'm explaining that well, because it's more on feel than on, okay, you need 5 grams of fiber and you need X amount of soap to make this work. It's not really that. It's more of you need enough fiber to cover your soap, and you need to make sure that it's not unnecessarily thick. So I wrapped that magenta or fuchsia around the lighter purple and then around the back. And now I'm going to take this darker purple one, and because my back, I can see a lot of soap right there. So I'm going to take this darker purple and I'm going to start it on the bottom and bring it around. And like, as I'm looking at it, I see I have a lot of roving over here. I'm not going to need that. I'm just going to tuck it away. We don't need that one, that piece. So I'm going to bring this kind of over, bring it over, and then find a spot to tuck your ends into. And it's mainly just to hold whatever pattern you've created until you start felting. So this is my piece. Now, yeah, this is my piece of soap. I'm going, oh, and that lighter that you're seeing there, that's the lavender fiber, not soap. So that's my piece of soap. I'm then going to grab one of my knee highs, stick my hand in there, hold on to the soap, pull the knee high around it. Now, you do not want to tie this off, because if you do, once it gets wet and you're felting it and rolling it around in your hand, it's going to be a pain in the neck to untie. You then have to cut it open, and now you've created one-use knee highs versus using them all day long. Or, well, not all day long. You know what I meant. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to just kind of tightly wrap it, and same as I did with the felting, give it just a slight tuck in. Okay, so this is number 1. I'm going to set it aside. Start on number 2. So number 2, I'm going to do the blues. And again, I'm just kind of pulling it out. So I have almost a sheet of roving instead of a long piece. Here we go, here we go. Okay. And I actually might need some more. So I'm going to grab another piece of the light blue. And all of these little remnants that I have are similar in size, but not exactly the same. So that's affecting how much I need for each bar of soap as well. So pulling that out. So this one, I'm going to wrap the light blue all the way around. Tuck this piece under. Whoop. Hang on. There we go. All right, so that was that first piece. This is the second piece I pulled out. I'm going to put that along the bottom. And the design element here is all you. Whatever you want to do is what you're going to do. I have seen soaps that get very intricate in the felting where they end up with a nice little design on the top. The most I've done is kind of those crisscrosses that you saw on the soaps that I showed you at the beginning, which I will show you how to do that with this one. So if you want to do a crisscross, in that case, we're going to pull the roving out just as if we were pre-drafting it. So thin, long piece that we want to end up with. And hang on. And again, it's one of those things where length is going to be dependent on what type of design you're trying to put in and how much you want to wrap around. Make sure that you have at least enough to wrap it around the soap once, that you're not just trying to stick bits on there, because it will be hard for them to stay in place while you're doing the actual felting. So I think that's going to be enough for what I want to do here. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to take one end, find a place to kind of tuck it under some roving, and then I am just going to wrap it around because that is something that has worked for me in the past. I like the resulting look of it. I think it looks very cool, and it still kind of stays intact as the soap is used and gets smaller and smaller. So I'm just not really doing a specific pattern. You could spiral it down with very, very exact ratios if you wanted to. To me, I worry about exact ratios if I'm spinning. I worry about exact ratios if I'm weaving. This is just fun. It's a way to get rid of some of the bits and bobs that I have without being wasteful. Actually, I am going to add another piece in there. So I just go with the flow on it. But, you know, if you wanted to try and make a star or a Celtic knot-inspired wrap, you could absolutely do that. If you already have the knowledge on Celtic knots and that sort of thing, I do not. So that's another reason why just wrapping around is fine. So this is what this one looks like. And you'll notice I have a little bit kind of hanging off the edge there, a little bit kind of hanging off the edge there. So when I put it into my knee-high here, I'm going to make sure to kind of tuck that hanging part against the knee-high and then pull it around. That way I'm just ensuring that that piece is pushed up against other wool and will kind of hang in there until we get to the felting. So then I'm just going to give it a couple twists, wrap it around, set that one aside. One more time I'll show you, because I'm doing 3 soaps. And this one is going to be the reds and oranges. So I have tested these out with a few different brands of soap. And the Olay I found seemed to sud up the most while still maintaining its shape for a while. So one thing to keep in mind is the wool will stay wet for a fairly decent amount of time. So you want to store it in a relatively dry place, on the shelf in the shower, on the back of the sink. You don't want it to be sitting in water, because just like with regular bar soap, it's going to affect the integrity of the soap. The difference is with the felt on the outside, you're not going to have that soap slipping through your fingers. So this one, I'm starting with the yellow. I kind of did the same pattern on all of them, starting with the lightest color. But anyway, so I'm starting with the yellow, and this one I'm going to roll differently. Instead of rolling it over the ends, I'm going to roll the roving around the soap long ways. Okay, so then I'm just kind of doing a little bit of tucking on the edges to make sure that I don't have any raw exposed soap. And then for these ones, I think I'm going to do another wrap like I did with the blue, but I'm going to start with the orange and then add the red. So we're going long, just like you would with pre-drafting if you're a spinner. And if you're not a spinner, this is a very light touch when you're pulling these fibers apart. It's very gentle, just a light pull. And I'm not gripping onto the fiber, just holding it in 2 fingers and give it a tug. So, oh, Marla, I'm sorry I didn't see your message. I'm so glad you made it and didn't forget. This one's going to be a fun one. And beyond that, I think it's just fun for all of us to hang out together. So, okay, so I've got that one stretched out. I'm going to start wrapping. Now, because I know I'm going to use 2 colors, this one I'm going to try and get fancy on. We'll see if it works. So I'm going to wrap only to one angle with the orange. I'm going to bring it back down here, wrap there, pull off my end, which can be used for more soap, by the way, when you pull off those little ends that you're not going to use. So, or dryer balls, which are another fun one. Those are just hard to demo because I generally just stick them in knee-highs and put them in the dryer. And I don't think anyone wants to sit and watch my dryer run. I mean, it's one of those ones that has the window so you can see all the stuff moving around, but it's still not fun. So even in quarantine, I'm not that bored. So we'll do felting on soap instead. So I'm giving it everything, again, just stretching this fiber out nice and thin. And so this wrap I'm going to do in the opposite direction. So this one, you can see my orange is at an angle here. So I'm going to do the red at an opposite angle and see if we can get something kind of like cross hatching. I have no idea. I've never gone quite this intricate with it before, but we'll see. We'll see. It can't hurt. It's kind of working. I'll show you in a second. Yep. Get around that edge there. We'll do one. We'll do another one. It's a design. I don't know if it's a good design, but it's a design. So I probably should have done the red underneath the orange, but that's all right. So again, I'm just going to grab my, that was from the last one. I'm going to grab my pantyhose here, or knee-highs. Now you can use pantyhose for this. You just cut them down, and you can use one pair of pantyhose, cut them and cut multiple pieces from them and use each piece. You just have to tie off one end so that the soap can't slip out. So, okay, so that's done. I'm going to set my towel back on the pan that I have over here, and I'm going to bring my bucket of water. Now, you can use hot or cold water because this we're using a lot of friction and the soap is helping with that. This is about room temperature water. It was warm when I put it in, but that was a while ago. So it's maybe even a little bit on the cool side. But this, I'm going to take my watch off for this because with my luck, I'll just stick my hand right in there. So just set that over there. Okay, so I'm going to take 2 of my soaps. I'm not going to let them get tangled up. The way I'm going to start, and I know it's going to be hard to see when I'm actually in the bucket, so I'm going to show you out here first. So I'm going to start with both of these under the water, and I'm going to start by rubbing them together, okay? The idea is by rubbing them together, you get that friction started, so the roving on the outside of the soap starts to felt, and the soap will start to sud up. Once you're getting some good suds off of one, you can set the other one aside for a moment, just work on that one. And I'll show you how I do that in just a second. So right now, when I'm in the water, I'm just going to be doing kind of this motion to get both of these soaps started. So it's kind of like this. And I'm sorry, guys, it's kind of an awkward position for me because I'm so short. I'm kind of having to lean up like this. But if I make my chair taller, then you can't see my head. And it makes it hard to talk to you guys when I can't see what I'm doing. So anyway, all right. So I'm just kind of, and you can kind of see how my hands are moving. It's just back and forth, get the friction started. You will eventually start to feel soap coming out. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh, so you're going to then give this as a gift as used soap. It really doesn't take that much soap to do it. And you saw the ones that I showed you at the beginning. Those were felted the exact same way. And you cannot tell that it's been wet before. I will say that once I get these started, okay, hang on. So this one, you're going to be able to see it better. That white right there, that's soap suds. So I know that I'm to a point where I can just work on one. I'm going to set this one on the towel, and I'm just going to work on this one. This one, I roll it in my hand kind of around like this. I'll use both of my hands and do a scrubbing motion almost as if I'm trying to wash my hands with the bar. And you're just going to do it until the roving underneath no longer feels fluffy. So you'll notice a change in texture where it feels like the only thing that's in there is the soap. And once you've reached that point, you know that you felted it enough to set it aside. So I'm going to get that started. What was I saying about, oh, yeah, it won't look like used soap when you are done, I promise. Oop, I lost my tight hold there. And it is important to have a tight hold because you want the friction to be happening on the soap and not the soap sliding out of the roving. So a couple of twists in those knee highs will do just fine. Also, if you have old knee highs, you can use them. You do not have to go out and buy brand new ones to do this with. I just didn't have any. So your water will start to get a little bit soapy. You can use a second bucket of water to dip the sudsed up soap into to kind of rinse it off. I don't really do that, to be honest. I mean, I haven't noticed a problem with not doing that, so I don't. And you can see I'm just kind of doing some friction on the side, just my hand, palm of my hand, back and forth on the soap, just making sure that that all those fibers are getting stuck together. And if you've never felted before and are wondering, like, what does that mean? It's literally just agitating the wool to the point where all those individual fibers start to lock together and knot together. And it's not knots like tying your shoes, but they'll lock together and it becomes almost a fabric. I don't know about strength of it and that kind of thing, but that's what we're doing here. Is that, and the friction is what gets all of those fibers all getting close and personal in there and finding a place to lock into. So that's the actual thing that's happening inside the knee highs. And you can see I'm getting real soapy now. And that's good. We want to get soapy because it means that the water is penetrating through the wool, so it wasn't too thick. And the soap is going to help add to the friction on the wool. So I'm going to keep going along like this, and then when I feel like it's done, which it's getting pretty close, I'll start the next one. But anyway, so this week last week was very exciting for me. I had meeting with you guys both Monday and Thursday, and then I had my first meeting with my students, first virtual meeting, which was very new and a little bit nerve-wracking at first. I wasn't sure how it was going to go with just being online. I think that's really hard to transition to, especially if you've never done it before. But it went really well, so I'm happy about that. And then over the weekend, my husband and I spent all Sunday morning in our yard cleaning, weeding the flower garden, mowing, edging, weed whacking. I mean, it needed to be done. We hadn't been out there in a couple weeks. And it was exhausting, but it was so nice to be outside, because with quarantine, we haven't really had anywhere to go. And so not having anywhere to go means we really don't leave that much. We don't have kids running around or anything like that to where we have a reason to go outside and stuff. So it was such a nice morning. It was kind of cool out. And we were out there for about 2.5 hours. But now every time I look outside, I'm like, yay, my front yard looks good. And I'm all happy about it. Okay, so this is going to be hard to see, and I don't want to hold it over my laptop, but you can start to feel that the soap and the wool, the thickness of the wool on the outside of the soap no longer feels squishy. It no longer feels like a pad on there. It will fluff up a little bit when it dries, but you want to make sure that you're not finding a spot that's real fluffy if you kind of poke your fingers around it. And so this one actually felt it up pretty quick. Usually takes about 5 to 10 minutes per bar, but so I'm going to just give it a little bit more of a rub just to make sure, and then rinse it and start the next one. So, but yeah, now I have a clean front yard, which I'm happy about, so happy about. But on top of that, the guild that I belong to is doing a quarantine challenge for yarn bombing your house, rather than doing it in a public place, obviously, because we shouldn't be doing that right now. And so now that my yard is clean, I'm thinking, what can I do to yarn bomb my front yard? Because we have 2 trees out there. Oh, whoops, not that one. So I have this one that I already got started, and this one that's still completely dry. What I'm going to do is, before I start this one by itself, I'm going to do the same thing I did with this one and the black one, and that is I'm going to rub them together, get this one started, and then I'll go back to working on this one. And I'm sorry, I think I'm shaking that camera, and I apologize. Anyway, so if you have any ideas for yarn bombing, please let me know. That's a really hard word to say, yarn bombing. But if you're not familiar with what it is, it's basically just doing some type of fiber art. Generally, it's in a public place as just a art installation kind of thing. So I don't want to do anything too big, because I just don't have the time with the deadline that they've set. But I'm thinking of either, and the other idea with yarn bombing is you want to use natural materials so that you're not creating waste, you're creating beauty that will then break down or can be removed easily. So I'm thinking of wrapping my tree trunks in a weaving or a couple weavings, because they're a little bit on the larger side, and so they'll cover, our tree trunks are not super thick. We have two small pecan trees out there. So they're not big, huge trunks, but still, if you were going to wrap with a single skein of yarn, it would take forever. So I'm thinking of doing a weaving around the base of my trees, and then on the shrubs that I have, I want to do something, maybe crocheted lace. I don't know. So if you have any ideas, please drop them in the chat or send me a note, because I would love to hear them. And I have probably about 2 or 3 days until I need to get that. Need to get something out there. So, or at least need to be working on it. So this one, and my rubbing technique kind of changes. It depends on where I find a good grip on the soap. Sometimes it depends on how you laid the fiber on it. Just do what feels comfortable. Just make sure that whatever you're doing, it's a constant movement. It's constantly really trying to get into those fibers, push them into that soap a little bit. And something else. So down here, my felting seems to already be taking hold. I'm not getting a lot of that squishy feel. But up here, when I push, I can feel the fiber moving if I slide my finger along there. That means it's not felted yet. So I'm going to keep going. It kind of is fun because you get to, it's like when you're a little kid, you get to like play in the bathtub or something. It's the same thing. You're just playing with soap. Well, my husband has been working from home since all of this started. And so during the day, I'm usually home by myself. But since he is here, I've been trying to be a little bit less intrusive. He's upstairs in another room, but he's doing meetings and that kind of thing. And I don't want my voice to carry or the dog's voices to barking to carry. And today I felt so bad. My poor Rumpus, my poor little Rumpus dog, he was just not having it this morning. He was in such a bad mood, and he was just following me around, barking. And he does that sometimes, but it was for about an hour and a half where he just wouldn't stop. He wasn't in pain. He had plenty of food and water. He'd been outside, all of that. He just woke up on the wrong side of the dog bed this morning. So I felt so bad. My husband came out for lunch, and I was like, oh, he wasn't bothering you, was he? I'm so sorry. I couldn't make him stop. He's like, no, it didn't. I didn't have any meetings, so no one could hear it. Because the first week that he was working from home, Rumpus was barking, and they did actually make a comment on the meeting. Oh, is your dog there? And he was like, no, my dog's downstairs. He's just that loud. So when he's done working, I tend to get a little bit louder just because I feel like I've been trying to be quiet all day. I don't know. He's probably like, yeah, I can't hear you at all during the day, but then at night you're driving me bananas. All right, so this one must have had, this is the purple one, and it must have had more fiber on it because I can still feel some wiggling in there. And what I will do when I feel a lot of wiggling of the wool, or what I think is the wool, I always make sure to dunk the bar into the water and just kind of give it a little squeeze to make sure that what I'm feeling, I'm sorry, I have a hair that keeps going in my mouth, that what I'm feeling is not suds and is actually the wool, which on this one, it seems to be the wool because I'm still feeling suds, so keep going. All right. And you can see how sudsy it gets. And I think you'll be able to tell, you might not, but there is soap on the top of the water here as well. So it gets pretty sudsy, but your bar is not going to shrink in size just from doing this. So. All right, I think that's going to be good on that one. We'll find out. which I'm going to try and finish this last one real quick so I can open up one of these and show you guys the result. They won't be dry, of course, but you'll be able to get an idea. So, got soap everywhere over here. All right, so last one. And so we've been, 40 minutes now, and I'm already on number 3. It's a very fast, easy to do craft that you end up with something just real cool. Great for gifts and that kind of thing, which I talked about at the beginning. I'm not going to reiterate. I think you know what to do with soap. I watched this YouTube channel, Mike Jevons, and I think it's just called Jevons, but his name is Mike. Anyway, my husband and I watch it, and he does reviews of products as seen on TV, products that they do infomercials for and stuff. And first of all, he's hilarious. His reviews are so funny. But the one thing that irritates him to no end is on an infomercial where they're selling a knife, and they talk about how it's new technology and it's a knife. And then they go through the list of things you can do with it, like cut onions, cut peppers, cut tomatoes, cut fish. And he's like, yes, we know that you can cut things with the knife. So you guys know what you can do with soap. You know what you can do with craft. So I'm going to try really hard not to belabor the point that, yes, you can do the same stuff with this soap that you can do with other soap, except to add that this gives it a nice little upcycled element if you use like a cheaper soap for it to make it more fun for gift giving. But yeah, if you're looking for a new YouTube channel to watch, I do recommend Jevons because he is very funny. He does those infomercialism. It's called infomercialism, but it's reviewing infomercial products. And then he also does, he calls it a week on, where he will do a week on a specific diet or type of food. And it's really interesting. Some of them are crazy. Like he did a week on baby food, which was hysterically funny to watch because he was absolutely miserable. But I don't think most people are going to spend a week eating baby food. So, okay. But then he also will do a week on Atkins, a week on food from a specific grocery store. He's from England. So if you're not in England, that specific grocery store might not be interesting to you. One time he did a week on Walmart brand food to show, and he said at the beginning, it wasn't about like, ha ha ha, people eat Walmart food. It was about showing kind of the variety and what you can and can't get away with if that's all you're going to buy. It was actually pretty interesting. He also did a week on McDonald's. That one was just funny to watch because I can't imagine eating McDonald's for a week. It's not even in my top 5 favorite fast foods. So eating it for a whole week just sounds miserable to me. Miserable. So getting this one nice and soapy. Now this one did have a lot of fiber. It seems to have felted up very quickly, but I'm going to give it some extra time because I feel like I put a lot more fiber on this one than I did on the other two. So get that going. Trying to find new things. So next week, I'm thinking I'll do backstrap weaving. My husband is really wanting me to do a guitar strap for him. So that's probably what we'll be doing next week, just to give you guys kind of a preview, sneak peek. I don't know that I'll be actually working on the guitar string because you have to do a lot of counting for, not backstrap weaving, I'm sorry, tablet weaving. You have to do a lot of counting and think hard, and I don't know if I could do that with a complicated pattern while keeping you guys informed of what I'm doing. So I'll probably do a simpler pattern. But for that one, if you're interested, if it's something that you wanted to do, what you will need to have is a deck of cards. I'm going to use my pre-printed cards, but a deck of cards can be used for for the same effect. So just an FYI on that, since that's not something everyone has. I found some decks of cards when I was cleaning at the beginning of quarantine, and I kind of set them aside in case, I don't know, if the electricity went out, whatever, we would have something to do. And so I put them in a bag and set them on the floor, and with some other stuff. And of course, that night was the night that my dog decided that he couldn't wait till I woke up to go to the bathroom, and he couldn't use the pad that we set out for him, and he ended up using the bathroom on the floor. Now, thankfully, it wasn't carpet. It was easy to clean up, and it's not something he does very often. But my cards got ruined. Ruined. And even if they weren't ruined, they were just too close to something disgusting for me to ever be able to use them again. So they went into the trash. But, okay. Oh, and if you're not here for soap felting and you're just here for the meeting in general, I would love to hear what you're working on. If you're weeding, spinning, crocheting, knitting, felting, anything, I would love to hear what you're working on, because it not only is it just exciting that we are being productive as a group, but also because it gives me ideas too for other things that we can do in these meetings. I do think that doing the demos like this are a little bit more fun for everybody, so I'll probably keep trying to do them, even if we go back to spinning or weaving. I'll make sure that it's an actual pattern that we can talk about instead of just you guys watching me spin, because I don't mind you guys watching me spin, but I think it's a little bit more fun for everyone if you're getting to learn something. Okay, so all of these are sitting on my towel here. Sorry, it looks kind of gross now because there's little bits of soap on it, but at least I know it's clean, not dirty, because of soap. It's on my tablecloth. Okay. So the first one that we finished was this black one. So I'm going to open this one up. Now, it's a good idea to open it up while it's still wet, because then you can actually see if everything's felted. And if not, you still have the opportunity to put it in the water. If you wait until it's dry, yes, you can still put it in the water, but now you have to pull all your stuff out again. So if you check it early, then it gives you a good place to start. So, and an idea of what is in there. So this is the blue soap. Now, I must not have had enough fiber, because there's one little spot right there where the soap is poking out, but it's just barely poking out. It's like the fiber there is thin more than being non-existent. So I'm probably just going to let it go. But technically, it's still wet. I could add another piece in there if I wanted to, and then just stick it back into the knee-high and keep felting it. But, yep, so that's the back. The spot that I'm talking about is this one here. This is just lighter, but there's more fiber there. And then this is the front. So that one's done. Now, I let these sit out on the towel until they are completely dry. Now, when I do twist setting in my yarn, wet setting, anything like that, I usually recommend putting things out in the sun, because it dries, at least where I live in Texas, everything dries here super fast. I put this yarn out that I showed you guys at the beginning. I put this outside. It was dry in an hour. An hour, because it's just so hot here. So for me, putting something outside doesn't mean I have to leave it there all day in the sun. And so I'll usually do that. I do not recommend doing that with soap, however, because you could have some melting or sweating from the soap that will make it warp or just affect the way the product looks at the end. So I would recommend just keeping it in a comfy spot. I'm gonna just rinse that one off a little bit. Keep it in a nice, cool, dry spot and let it sit. I want to say it takes about 12 to 18 hours to dry completely, based on what I've done previously. So it will also depend on how much roving you've used. Sorry. I don't know why. Sometimes my brain just decides to stop. Anyway, it will also depend on how much fiber you have on the outside, because that's going to, because now that it's felted, the space between the fibers is a lot smaller. So it's going to hold water a lot better, because you're not getting airflow through there. So 12 to 18 hours, just make sure that you have it set in a place that's lavender, not soap. But just make sure you have it set up in a place that it can dry and not be disturbed. And you're done. Now this one's pretty soapy, so I will probably rinse it off after I stop streaming with you guys. This one came out perfect. I mean, there's no soap, like real big soap suds on it or anything, so I will not rinse that one. I won't touch it again until it's dry. And then the last one here. I'm getting in there. You know, I should probably cut these knee highs down. The thing is, though, I like the band that is around the top, because I feel like it's going to help keep things from slipping out a little bit. So I should cut them because they're unnecessarily long, but I probably won't. Oh, this one actually came out better than I thought. So this was the one that I did the orange and the red attempt at cross hatching for. And yeah, there's no cross hatching there, but you can see that the orange and the red lines are very defined. It's got a cool look on it, with that yellow base, and it's completely covered. I don't see any soap peeking through on that one. So that one I'll just let dry. Now, another thing to keep in mind is the more you agitate the soap, pulling it out of the knee highs, the more it's going to sud up, and then you may end up having to rinse them. Rinsing them is not a problem or anything, but if you're like, I just want to be done, pull them out gently. So the knee highs, I just throw in the water. I'll let those soak in there for a little bit, and then I'll rinse them out in the sink. Separate them out here. Okay. And that's it. That's all you have to do. And you end up with these really cool things that are just nice to have around. I keep one in my guest bathroom. I've used one. The thing that I like most about using them is that the soap is not slippery that way, especially if you have grip problems or that kind of thing. It can be really helpful. And I also like the fact that it's not, that it's biodegradable. So I had my mom ask me, she was like, but I mean, you just keep using the soap? Like, it's kind of gross because the wool is not going in the washing machine or anything like that. And that's true. However, I don't put my loofah in the washing machine when I use the loofah. And so when she said that to me, it kind of made me think about how disgusting my loofah was. And now I just really like using these instead. And I do use them more often than not, just because it's easier for me than having the soap not be felted. So that is the whole project. Here, let me see if I can get these up in the camera a little bit better for you. Or I can throw them all over the table. There's that too. All right, let's try this again. Look. There. That's a good angle. All right, so you can see we've got the purple one, the blue one, and the orange one. And they're all done. So I'll let them dry overnight under the fan, see how they are in the morning. If they're dry, I then just store them in a plastic bag. If they're still wet, I'll leave them out. And I've had these ones for about 4 months stored in, let me hold this one up because that one's kind of washed out on the camera. Okay, so these ones I made about 4 or 5 months ago, December, January of this year. And, January of this year, December of last year. but I've been storing them in a plastic bag under my sink and have not noticed any degrading of the soap, any effect to the wool, anything like that. And so I just pull them out as I need them. And I made like 8, 9 of them originally, something like that. So, and they last about 6 weeks to 2 months, somewhere in there. So, okay. So that's our whole project for today. I hope you had fun. I loved doing it. I'm so glad you guys joined me. I hope you learned something. You're going to try it out. If you do try it out, I would love to see pictures. You can drop a comment in this video, which will be on the YouTube channel. You can follow me on Instagram at Spin and Dye in Texas and tag me because I would love to see what you work on. And you can also just send me a message on Instagram too if you're like, I really don't want to share this with the whole world. I get it. I really do. So you can just send me a private message and that's fine. But next week we will be doing tablet weaving. It's kind of like using an inkle loom, only it's not because I don't have an inkle loom. So it's a little bit backstrap, a little bit tablet, but it's a lot of fun as well. So if you don't know how to do that and you want to learn, please check in with us Monday at 7 p.m. or next Thursday at 1 p.m. If you enjoyed the soap felting and you would like to get more information or you want to kind of do it along with me, then you can join our meeting Thursday at 1 p.m. I will be doing soap felting again. So feel free to sign into that one as well. It will be the same project, but if you want to actually try it out and you want to do it where you can still ask questions if you need help or anything like that, please feel free to do it. I'd love to have you. I managed to do all of that in 57 minutes. You guys, you don't know how excited I am every time I hit a time limit. I get very excited because I may come across as a really shy and quiet person. I love to talk. And so I have a bad habit of talking too much sometimes. So I'm glad that we got through the whole process, everything that you need to do. You got to actually see the soaps. And we still have a couple minutes to spare. So I'm calling that a win today. If you have any questions, if you decide to do this on your own, again, you can just message me on Instagram or drop a question in the comments on this video. And I do respond to them. I try and respond quickly. So if you're right in the middle of it, it's still worth messaging me because I will answer you. So, all right. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Make sure to follow me on Instagram. Both ways will get you notifications of when I'm going to go live. And you can also follow my Etsy shop if you're interested in it. I do hand-dyed yarn and roving as well as hand-spun yarn. So you're welcome to check that out as well. It's Spin and Dye in Texas on Etsy. So I hope you guys have a great week. I might see you Thursday, but I'll definitely see you next Monday. And let me know if you try out soap felting and how you like it. Have a great week. Bye. There we go.